Greetings, true champions of the cause. Welcome to Starplanet Beyond the Canon, a showcase of literary fan works from across the multiverse of your favorite intellectual properties. On today's episode, we will be showcasing a work inspired by George Lucas's pop culture phenomenon, Star Wars. But not Disney Star Wars, good Star Wars. Entitled Star Wars, A Symphony of Blasters, published 30th of June, 2024. Now, dear travelers, let's begin. The sky was painted with a haunting glow of distant explosions, and in the rubble of a once thriving city on the edge of the galaxy, the echoes of battle formed a grim symphony. The squad of Stormtroopers, their white armor dirtied and scarred from the unrelenting fight, moved cautiously through the shattered remains of what used to be a bustling marketplace. The war had torn apart the very fabric of life here, leaving behind a ghostly reminder of civilization. Sergeant TK 421 led his men through the debris, his eyes scanning every shadow. The mission was simple in theory: hold the position until reinforcements arrived. But in the chaos of war, nothing was ever truly simple. Each step forward was a delicate dance with death, and every corner was a potential ambush waiting to spring. "Stay sharp," he muttered into the comms, his voice barely audible over the din of destruction. "We're deep in hostile territory." Private FN 2187, a rookie in the squad, tried in vain to suppress his fear. The stories he had heard about the rebels were truly terrifying. They were not just fighting soldiers, but battling an idea, a fierce resistance that would stop at nothing. As they advanced, the squad stumbled upon a small child, her eyes wide with terror, clutching a tattered doll amidst the ruins. She stood alone, a lone figure in a world gone mad. TK 421 signaled his men to halt. "Secure the area," he ordered, his voice hardened by years of combat. He approached the girl slowly, his blaster lowered but still at the ready. "Are you alone?" he asked, his tone gentle. The girl's dirt-streaked face was marked by tears as she nodded. She embodied the true victims of the war, the innocents caught in the crossfire. "We can't leave her here," FN 2187 said, his voice trembling. "We have our orders," TK 421 replied, though he couldn't bring himself to turn away from the child's pleading eyes. Corporal DS 553, the squad's medic, stepped forward. "We can't help everyone, but we also can't abandon her. We'll take her to the extraction point, where she'll be safe." Reluctantly, TK 421 agreed. The squad formed a protective circle around the girl and continued their march through the war-ravaged city, each member burdened by the weight of their mission and the responsibility for the child's safety. As they moved deeper into the ruins, the sounds of battle grew louder, a constant cacophony of blaster fire and explosions. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning. Every step was a struggle, both physically and mentally. The squad took cover behind a crumbling wall as a rebel patrol passed by. TK 421 signaled for silence. The rebels' hushed voices, speaking of their own losses and plans, sounded all too human, not unlike the squad's own. FN 2187 gripped his blaster tighter, his heart pounding. These were the enemies they had been trained to fight, yet now they seemed no different from themselves. The patrol moved on, unaware of the stormtroopers concealed just feet away. TK 421 waited until the rebels were out of sight before giving the order to advance. The squad continued their wary journey, senses on high alert. The once bustling streets had become a labyrinth of destruction, each turn revealing new horrors. Civilian and soldier bodies lay strewn about, a grim testament to the brutality of war. The squad pressed on, their spirits dampened by the scenes of devastation. Suddenly, A blaster shot rang out, narrowly missing FN-2187's head. The squad dove for cover, returning fire towards the source of the attack. The quiet ruins erupted into a chaotic crossfire. "Hold your ground," TK-421 shouted, his voice barely audible over the din of battle. The rebels were well hidden among the ruins, using the terrain to their advantage. The outgunned stormtroopers fought back with everything they had, but the fight was desperate, each moment a struggle for survival. Private RJ-745, the squad's heavy weapons specialist, unleashed a barrage of fire, forcing the rebels to take cover. But it was only a temporary respite. The enemy was relentless in their attack. "We can't hold them off indefinitely," Corporal DS-553 shouted, desperately tending to a fallen comrade, the chaos of battle swirling around him. "We just need to stall them a little longer," TK-421 responded, his blaster firing with lethal accuracy, each shot a testament to his resolve. Reinforcements are on their way. Yet, the harsh truth loomed over them like a dark cloud. The odds were stacked against them, and survival came at a steep price. Each loss echoed the brutal reality of their fight, a grim reminder of the sacrifices made in the name of war. Amidst the turmoil, a small girl clung tightly to FN-2187, her tiny hands gripping his armor as if it were a lifeline. She stood as a symbol of innocence, a stark contrast to the brutality that surrounded them. "We have to get her to safety," FN-2187 yelled above the din, desperation lacing his voice as he scanned the battlefield for a way out. TK-421 nodded in agreement, understanding the urgency of the young private's plea. "Fall back to the extraction point. Move out." The squad initiated a tactical retreat, battling fiercely with every step as the relentless rebels pursued them, intent on thwarting their escape. It was a perilous game of survival, where every moment counted and lives were hung by a thread. As they neared the extraction point, the ground shook with a deafening explosion, sending debris flying in all directions. FN-2187 shielded the girl with his own body, feeling the impact of the blast reverberate through him. Pain seared through his frame, but he pushed it aside and focused solely on getting the child to safety. Finally, they reached the small clearing where a shuttle waited, its engines already roaring to life. The pilot urgently signaled them to hurry aboard. The squad scrambled into the shuttle, providing cover fire as they beat a hasty retreat. The shuttle lifted off, leaving the battlefield behind. As they soared into the sky, the stormtroopers could at last catch their breath. The adrenaline rush began to subside, replaced by the heavy weight of their harrowing ordeal. The little girl looked up at FN-2187, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He nodded momentarily, at a loss for words. The horrors of war were seared into his mind, a constant reminder of the cost of their mission. As the shuttle sped towards safety, TK-421 surveyed his squad. They had survived, but at what price? The faces of the fallen haunted him. Their sacrifices weighed heavily upon him. The war had shown them its harshest realities, leaving scars that would never fully heal. In the end, they were just soldiers, fighting for a cause they barely understood, in a galaxy torn apart by unrelenting conflict. And as they fled the ruins of the city, the echoes of battle still rang in their ears, a haunting symphony that would forever linger. And with that, let's take a break. We'll be back after these messages. You are watching Starplanet Beyond the Canon.
No matter where you are in the universe, there's always one place that feels like home. A place where the fries are fresh and the drinks are cold. A A place where the burgers are always cooked to perfection, every time. Everyone knows the galaxy's best burgers are on Starplanet. Starries eat in, eat out, but always eat the best. Greetings, true champions of the cause. We hope you're enjoying your stay here on Starplanet. Please allow me to take this opportunity to introduce you to Starplanet Music, a continuously expanding portfolio of musical works that spans an impressive array of genres. Starplanet Music, the future of the underground. Visit starplanetmusic.com today.
Welcome back. Let's continue. The shuttle glided through the upper atmosphere, its gentle hum a haunting echo against the chaos of battle that lingered in the distance. FN-2187 sat in a heavy silence, his blaster resting on his lap, the small weight of the child nestled against him, a poignant reminder of the stakes at hand. TK-421, still reeling from the violence they had just escaped, moved to the cockpit, offering a curt nod to the pilot, who remained composed amidst the turmoil. "We're clear," the pilot announced, his voice steady and reassuring. "We'll reach the extraction base in 10 minutes. TK-421 nodded again, too drained to articulate his thoughts, and returned to the cabin where his squad awaited, their expressions etched with exhaustion and sorrow. FN-2187 held the girl close. Her peaceful slumber was a stark contrast to the armored warriors surrounding her. Corporal DS-553 was diligently attending to the injured, while RJ-745, the heavy weapons expert, grimaced in pain, his leg wounded and his armor marred with blood. The medic worked with precision, his hands steady despite the turbulence that rocked their flight. "We made it," FN-2187 breathed, a mix of relief and disbelief coloring his words. "We actually made it." "For now," TK-421 replied, his voice laced with foreboding. "But the battle is far from over." It was a cold, hard truth, devoid of any call to arms. The reality loomed large. Battles would never cease, and missions would always await. For the moment, however, they found themselves in a fleeting lull, a brief interlude before the chaos erupted once more. The shuttle touched down softly at the extraction base, a secluded outpost nestled on the fringes of the conflict. This base served as a temporary sanctuary, a refuge for weary soldiers to catch their breath before being thrust back into the relentless turmoil. As the ramp descended, medics and support personnel surged forward, their movements sharp and practiced, a testament to the unending strife they faced. "Get the injured to the med bay," barked a medic, her voice cutting through the din as she guided the wounded toward the triage area. RJ-745 was carefully placed on a stretcher, his features contorted in agony, yet he managed a faint grin. "I'll be back in action soon enough," he whispered, more to himself than to anyone nearby, clinging to the hope that fueled his spirit. A nurse cradled the little girl, vowing to search for her family if they still drew breath. FN-2187 observed her departure, a tight knot of anxiety and sorrow coiling in his chest. Though their time together had been brief, her essence had etched itself deeply into his heart. TK-421 assembled his squad, guiding them into a debriefing room that was stark and utilitarian, its walls adorned with screens flashing tactical maps and mission updates. They settled into a heavy silence, the burden of the recent hours pressing down upon them like a dark cloud, thick with unspoken fears and unyielding resolve. Captain Lyra Drayton strode into the room, her demeanor as unyielding as the steel of a starship's hull. A veteran of countless battles, her name echoed through the ranks as a symbol of discipline and unwavering strength. She settled into her position at the head of the table, her piercing gaze sweeping over the assembled soldiers, each facing a canvas of tension and anticipation. "Give me your report," she commanded, her voice slicing through the heavy air with the precision of a lightsaber. TK-421 began to recount the details of their mission, his tone steady and unwavering as he described the ambush, the chaos of the firefight, and their narrow escape from the clutches of death. He spoke of the girl, an unforeseen element in their plans, and the losses they had endured along the way. Captain Drayton absorbed every word, her expression a mask that revealed nothing of her inner thoughts. As TK-421 concluded his account, she offered a curt nod, a sign of recognition rather than approval. "You did well to survive," she stated flatly, her voice stripped of any warmth. "The intelligence you gathered is crucial. Command will dissect it and strategize our next course of action." The squad remained silent, the weight of her words hanging heavily in the air, a stark reminder of the relentless cycle they were ensnared in. Data collection, analysis, strategizing, and then back into the fray, a loop that felt inescapable. "Dismissed," Captain Drayton finally said, her gaze softening just a fraction. "Take some time to rest. You'll need every ounce of strength for what lies ahead." The squad rose, saluting their commander, before filing out of the room. The debriefing had been brief, the details already blurring into the background of their minds. Now, they had a moment to themselves, a brief reprieve from the demands of war. TK-421 led his men to the barracks, a large utilitarian building that housed the soldiers during their downtime. The beds were simple, the amenities sparse, but it was a place to rest and heal. The squad collapsed onto their bunks, the exhaustion of the day finally catching up to them. FN-2187 lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. The events of the day replayed in his mind, a loop of violence and fear. He thought of the little girl, her frightened eyes, and the innocence she represented. He wondered if she would find her family, and if she would ever be safe again. RJ-745 was already asleep. His snores were a testament to the toll the mission had taken on him. Corporal DS-553 sat on the edge of his bunk, his hands shaking slightly as he tried to unwind. The medic had seen too much and done too much. The weight of his duty bore heavily on him. TK-421 sat apart from his men, his mind a whirl of thoughts and emotions. He had led his squad through another mission and brought them back alive. But the cost was always high. He felt the burden of command and the responsibility for each life under his care. The faces of the fallen haunted him. Their silent accusations were a constant reminder of his failures. "Sergeant?" FN-2187's voice broke through his reverie. "Yes, Private," TK-421 replied, his tone softer than usual. "Do you ever wonder what we're fighting for?" FN-2187 asked, his eyes searching the older man's face for answers. TK-421 sighed with a deep, weary sound. "Every day, Private. Every single day." The words hung in the air, a shared understanding of the futility and necessity of their struggle. They fought because they had to, because there was no other choice. The galaxy was a cruel place, and survival meant taking up arms and defending what little they had left. As the squad drifted into an uneasy sleep, The silence of the barracks was broken only by the distant sounds of the base, a reminder that even in rest, the war was never far away. The night stretched on, and the darkness was a brief respite from the harsh light of battle. The morning came too soon, the dawn breaking with a harsh, cold light. The squad rose, their bodies still aching from the previous day's ordeal. They moved through the motions of their routine, the familiar tasks a small comfort in an otherwise chaotic existence. TK 421 gathered his men for a briefing, with the latest orders coming down from command. They were to hold positions at the base, awaiting further instructions. It was a rare moment of relative peace, a chance to regroup and recover. The base was a hive of activity, soldiers and droids moving with purpose. The wounded were being tended to, and repairs were made to equipment and defenses. It was a constant cycle of preparation and recovery, the rhythm of war. FN 2187 found himself wandering the base, his mind still occupied by the events of the previous day. He passed the medbay, glancing inside to see RJ 745 sitting up in bed, his leg bandaged, but his spirit undiminished. "Hey, rookie," RJ called out, his voice cheerful despite his injury. "Come to check on the old man? Just making sure you're not causing trouble," FN 2187 replied with a grin, stepping inside. RJ laughed, a sound that was rare but welcome. "You know me. I am always the model patient." The two soldiers shared a moment of camaraderie. The bond formed in battle was a lifeline in the chaos of war. They spoke of lighter things, small moments of humor, and humanity that kept them grounded. Meanwhile, TK 421 stood outside the command center, his gaze fixed on the horizon. He knew the peace was temporary, a brief lull before the storm. The war would continue, and they would be called upon once more to fight and risk everything for a cause that seemed ever more elusive. Corporal DS 553 joined him, the medic's face drawn with worry. "Sergeant, about the girl. Do you think she'll be okay?" TK 421 sighed, answering the question he had asked himself many times. "I don't know, Corporal, but we did what we could. Sometimes that's all we can do." The two men stood in silence, the weight of their roles pressing down on them. They were soldiers, yes, but also human beings, trying to navigate a world torn apart by conflict. As the day wore on, the squad found small moments of solace. They trained, prepared their gear, and shared stories of home. Each man dealt with the reality of war in his own way, finding strength in the bonds they had formed. In the evening, FN 2187 sat alone, his thoughts drifting back to the little girl. He wondered what had become of her, and if she had found safety in the chaos. The innocence she represented was a stark reminder of what they were fighting for, a glimmer of hope in a galaxy consumed by darkness. TK 421 joined him, the sergeant's presence a silent comfort. They sat in quiet companionship, the unspoken understanding of soldiers who had seen too much and done too much. "Do you ever think it will end?" FN 2187 asked. The question hung in the air, heavy and pregnant with unspoken fears. TK 421 took a deep breath, the weariness of command evident in the lines of his face. "I don't know, Private," he said finally, his voice steady but filled with a weariness that spoke of too many battles and too many unanswered questions. "I've been in this fight a long time. Sometimes it feels like we're just running in circles." FN 2187 nodded, his eyes focused on the horizon where the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over the base. "It feels like we're always on the edge of something big, but never really making a difference." Sometimes the difference isn't in the grand victories, TK421 replied, his gaze still on the sunset. It's in the small things, saving a life or holding a line long enough for others to escape. It's about making sure the fight means something. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable, but filled with the shared understanding of those who had seen too much. The squad had faced countless battles, but moments like these were rare, moments of reflection, of questioning, of understanding. As darkness fell, the base's lights flickered on, casting a warm glow over the hard structures and the soldiers moving about. The usual hum of activity continued, but there was a different atmosphere tonight, a sense of tiredness that seemed to settle over everyone like a shroud. Inside the mess hall, soldiers gathered for a simple meal. The food was basic, but there was comfort in the routine. The squad sat together, sharing stories and small jokes to lighten the mood. The camaraderie was palpable, a lifeline in the midst of the ongoing conflict. Remember when you tried to cook for the squad back on that desert planet? RJ745 asked with a grin, addressing FN2187. I think we're still finding sand in our gear. FN2187 laughed, a genuine, hearty laugh that was rare in such a grim environment. Hey, I tried, and besides, it was better than the rations we're used to. The laughter was a welcome distraction, a momentary escape from the harsh realities outside the walls of the base. For a while, the soldiers could forget their worries and simply enjoy each other's company. As the evening wore on, TK421 found himself alone in a quiet corner of the mess hall, lost in thought. The battle had taken its toll, and the weight of command was heavier than ever. He picked up a datapad, reviewing the latest updates from command. The conflict was far from over, and the reports were filled with more battles and more losses. The door to the mess hall opened, and Captain Lyra Drayton stepped inside. She spotted TK421 and made her way over, her expression one of concern and professionalism. "Sergeant," she said, taking a seat across from him, "how are you holding up?" TK421 shrugged, trying to mask the exhaustion. "I'm managing. We all are. It's just hard to keep going sometimes." Captain Drayton nodded, her eyes sympathetic. "I understand. We're all feeling it. The constant fighting, the losses, it wears on you. There's always something more," TK421 said, his voice low. "New objectives, new missions. It never seems to end." "That's the nature of this war," Drayton replied. "It's relentless, but we have to remember why we fight. For every life we save and every mission we complete, we make a difference." TK421 nodded, though he struggled to find solace in her words. The war seemed endless, and the sacrifices were too great. But he knew she was right. It was the small victories, the moments of humanity amidst the chaos, that kept them going. The conversation turned to logistical details, strategic updates, and plans for the next phase of the campaign. Even in moments of quiet reflection, the reality of their situation was never far from their minds. As the night deepened, the soldiers retired to their barracks. The routine of the base was a welcome break from the chaos of the front lines, but it was also a constant reminder of the ongoing conflict. FN2187 lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling once more. His thoughts returned to the girl they had rescued, and to the innocence she represented. He wondered if she had found her family, and if she was safe now. TK421 lay awake as well, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The mission had been successful, but the cost had been high. The faces of the fallen haunted him, their silent reminders of the sacrifices made in the name of duty. The next morning, the base was bustling with activity. Orders were handed down, equipment was prepared, and soldiers moved with purpose. The brief respite was over, and the war was calling once more. TK-421 gathered his squad for a final briefing before their next deployment. The mission was a critical one, aimed at securing a strategic location that had recently fallen into enemy hands. The stakes were high, and the risks were great. "Listen up," TK-421 said, his voice firm. "We're heading back into the fight. This mission is important. We need to secure the location and hold it until reinforcements arrive." The squad nodded, their expressions a mix of determination and apprehension. They knew the risks, but they also knew their duty. They were soldiers, and their purpose was clear. FN-2-187 approached TK-421 after the briefing with a look of concern on his face. "Sergeant, what if it all seems pointless? What if we keep fighting and nothing ever changes?" TK-421 looked at the young private, seeing the doubt and fear in his eyes. "It's not about the end result," he said quietly. "It's about what we do along the way. We fight to protect those who can't protect themselves. We fight for a better future, even if we don't always see it." FN-2187 nodded, taking solace in the sergeant's words. He understood the necessity of their fight, but it didn't make the burden any lighter. The squad prepared for deployment. Their movements were a mix of practiced efficiency and nervous energy. They donned their armor, checked their weapons, and gathered their gear. Each step was a reminder of the mission ahead, the battles they would face, and the sacrifices they would make. As they boarded the transport, the squad exchanged final words of encouragement. The bonds they had formed were strong, forged in the fires of conflict and cemented by shared experiences. TK-421 looked at his men, a sense of pride and responsibility filling him. They were ready for the fight, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And as the transport lifted off, heading back into the heart of the conflict, he knew they would give everything they had to complete their mission. The war was far from over, and the journey was far from easy. But in the midst of the chaos, there was a sense of purpose and a sense of duty. They fought not just for themselves, but for a future they hoped would be better. As the transport flew towards its destination, the squad prepared for the battle ahead. The harsh realities of war were always present, but so were the small victories, the moments of humanity that kept them going. The Symphony of Blasters continued with a relentless and unforgiving melody, and as the Stormtroopers prepared to face the next chapter of their journey, they knew that no matter the outcome, they would face it together, bound by their shared experiences and their unwavering resolve. The galaxy might be a place of endless conflict, but in the hearts of the Stormtroopers, there was a flicker of hope, a belief that their fight had meaning. And in that belief, they found the strength to continue, to endure, and to strive for a better tomorrow. And with that, true champions of the cause, our story has come to an end. I thank you for spending this time with us, and I look forward to seeing you again. Please let your thoughts be known in the comments. I truly look forward to reading them. So, until next time, please like, comment, and subscribe. Go visit enterstarplanet.com for more, and until our paths meet again, I have been your host, Arius. See you in the shadows, my love.